Let's go straight to Nazareth, where my colleagues Aldrin Sampier and Sakina Kamwendo are on standby. Aldrin and Sakina, take us through what's been happening over there today.
Well, today we had the organizational report as well as the organizational renewal documents that were discussed in the various commissions. But also this big issue is with regards to the 68 votes or the 63 votes. There's still no finality to this matter as it stands at the moment. Sakina?
Well, what we can tell you is that there's been a lot of milling around of delegates here at conference, and it seems that there has been some delay. And we've just learned that people from the Senzo Mkunu camp, they've indicated that indeed they will be going to court. We're not quite sure about the more substantive reasons as to why they would, but if a solution is not found to that particular situation that has developed inside at this point by tonight, then they will be proceeding to court. And as we understand, the lawyers already working on those papers. Aldrin.
Strangely, it's a thing that President Jacob Zuma raised during his opening remarks in his political report about people taking the party to court, and now we're seeing it happen yet again. It is a strange thing within the ANC that it seems that any other conference of the party will be contested in court, and outcomes of the conferences will also be contested in court. And now we have the courts will be the final arbiters and taking the final decision on what should happen in this matter with regards to issues within the ANC. It almost seems that the ANC can't deal with their own issues.
Because perhaps the issues are very deep-rooted, Aldrin, and the divisions run even deeper. So it's one of those things. But I guess, we don't have to speculate much. We've got someone from the inside, Ronald Lamola, who has joined us. Thanks so much for coming through. And you seem rather tired. And one can imagine it has been a marathon session. But what's happening on the inside? It seems there are so many delegates milling around. Is work going on, or have things stalled? What is happening?
Yes, work is going on. Delegates are on the voting queue. I am also from the voting queue. Others are eating, so conference is proceeding.
Let's speak about this issue about the 63, 68 votes. What's happening there?
I don't know. It has not yet been reported to.
But you've heard about it?
Yeah, I've heard about it.
What do you know about it?
No, I can't really talk about that issue because remember the steering committee is currently engaging on it, so it has not yet reported to plenary, and I can't talk on speculations.
From the information that you know at this point, do you know when the steering committee is supposed to be reporting back to plenary?
It is not yet clear. Remember, when we voted for the top 6, we voted for almost the whole night. So now we're voting for 80 people. The plenary, I'm sure it will resume tomorrow. I don't think plenary will resume today because I'm from the queue. The queue is very long.
Do you know whether the 68 or 63 people will also be casting a vote for the NEC positions?
I don't know.
It seems so weird. It's such a strange thing that the ANC finds itself in, right? That you have these mysterious 68 votes or 68 delegates who didn't cast their ballots or may have cast their ballots, and whichever ANC member that you speak to, they don't understand what's happening. It almost throws the conference off track.
No, it doesn't, because remember, the steering committee will only report to us when they find a solution. So at this stage, as delegates to conference, we do not know what the steering committee is discussing. They will only give us a report. So if you want to really understand what is happening with the steering committee, I think you will have to engage the guys in the steering committee.
But as it stands at the moment, you accept the results as they are?
Yeah, obviously, ourselves in the conference plenary, we heard the results, and we were still awaiting the declaration and so forth from the IEC. So at this stage, we welcome what has been presented. We will take the report of the steering committee and take it from there.
So an assessment of how the work in the sector committees is progressing?
No, you mean the commissions?
Commissions.
No, the commissions are done.
Are they done?
There was robust and proper engagements, and I hope the steering committee of conference will report to the nation on what is the outcome of in terms of resolutions, because as a delegate, I can't report on those issues.
What are some of the issues, sorry Sakina, what are some of the issues that really stood out for you from these commissions?
Obviously, it's with regard to, for me, the main issue is the structure of the economy, the decisive intervention that the ANC needs to do to arrest the highest decline. Statistics after statistics reflect, particularly on the youth unemployment in the country. We need a decisive intervention, and I think there have been progressive proposals also on the issues that deals with the fourth industrial revolution, how the country must position itself to be able to respond to the current challenges that will obviously be posed by automation and the various things that are obviously affecting the global setting of society. So I think there will be progressive and clear radical economic policies that will address most of the things, and I've seen also that the rand is a bit strengthened because of the outcomes of the conference that the ANC held, a stable, non-chaotic, normal. It is in the interest of this country that the ANC remains a coherent structure, because this is the hope of and aspirations of many South Africans, and I think this conference will indeed restore confidence of all South Africans to the ANC as a people's organization, and that the ANC's interest is not for itself but is to resolve societal challenges.
So just coming back to what's happening inside, and you say all the work in the commissions have been completed. So what is currently happening?
It's
apart
voting.
from the voting? Apart from the voting, is that the last order of business?
It's voting. There's nothing else that can happen when you're voting. Everyone must vote. So that's why the queues are long. So it's voting. And I think it will take very long. So voting might take the whole night.
Sure, so in terms of the program, you guys are done?
Well,
After
voting is part of the conference.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we are in the conference.
Yes,
voting.
we understand that. But,
Yes,
but
we are part
after
of
that,
the program. After that, we're going to sleep and come back tomorrow.
and tomorrow,
plenary.
what's going to happen tomorrow? What's on the agenda?
Plenary. It's plenary tomorrow.
So that will be the feedback from all the commissions?
From the voting, from the commissions, from everything. That's what's going to happen. And then there will be discussions as to adoptions of the resolutions and yeah.
Let me just quickly ask you this one. As it stands at the moment, there are two chairpersons of two provinces who are part of the ANC's top 6, which means that there are two provinces without a chairperson. And a question that I asked earlier on to the ANC Women's League is whether they will be canvassing for a woman to become chairperson in those two provinces. Where does Ronald Lamola stand on this matter?
Now, obviously, it will be up to provinces to elect whoever they want to lead their provinces. So members in those provinces, when they do go to elections, will elect. But you will know that the majority of them, like Free State, which has just been ruled, we don't know what is going to happen, what will be the decision of the NEC, and whether there will be an appeal or not from the current, those that have been nullified by court. KZN, there is an appeal standing. So there will need also be a political engagement by the NEC. So those are things that you can't really prophesize what is going to happen. The NEC will have to decide, and the members of the ANC in those provinces will have to decide what they want to happen to their structures.
But would you support a deliberate attempt to ensure at least, work towards gender parity by supporting a call for a female premier in the province that you come from, which is in Mpumalanga?
No, I mean, it's something that has been accepted in the ANC, and I think the ANC has contributed a lot in putting women in various structures, including putting it into the constitution of the ANC that there must be 50-50 gender parity in the leadership of the ANC. And I think it has progressively dealt with issues of women premiers. There are many in various provinces. So it depends at the time of, there have been Nokolo Kirvet, Leon Brown.
But
they
that's
have
history
been.
we're talking now.
No, I'm saying it has happened. The ANC has advanced it. So I think if women do not emerge in some of the structures, it's the responsibility of both men and women to assist the organization to deal with that. But it might also be a reflection on the Women's League itself. That I mean, we had Comrade Balegambete, whom I think she's a very astute lady, who has stood and she has exited with dignity. There was Comrade Lindwe Sisulu, who was standing, and the Women's League chose to only support one woman. So you can't blame and Comrade two women and Comrade JC. So you can't really say there was a ganging up against women. The reality is that conference said we must accept what has happened. We need to have a proper plan going forward. How do women also support each other? Because
but that's a very reductionist view on the situation, because the reality is that patriarchy is deeply entrenched within the African National Congress. It's one thing to say on paper that, you know, we aspire towards this, but at which point did the ANC achieve that in terms of, for example, the issue that Aldrin raises, premiers, where you had a 50-50 split between males and females at any given point in time?
The point I'm raising, Sakina, is that an issue of policy is an issue that you must fight for it. You must, when you have fought for it, fight for its implementation. We have fought for generational mix in the ANC. In the 2011 conference of the Youth League, we fought that it must be made ANC policy. Unfortunately, it has never happened, but when you look at current structures across the country, you can find expressions of young people who have come through the ranks of the Youth League in various provinces. You can see them emerging. So it does not mean that when it has been put in place, it will implement itself. You must fight for its implementation. So for ourselves, from the younger generation, we understood that in the ANC, you have to fight for your space. And young people across the country, that's what they are doing. And I think that's what they want also to see happening in the current National Executive Committee of the ANC, to have a vast majority of a younger generation that will infuse a new thinking. So I think it is upon all of us, members of the ANC and the Alliance, to ensure that there is also a clear representation of women in ANC structures. It has already been done through the Constitution, but the Constitution itself is not enough. We need to fight for its implementation. And when it deals with the 50-50 gender parity, it's very clear. But it also needs to have that support from lobbying and so forth. That is what is the responsibility of all structures. But the Women's League was also created to deal with that lobby.
But why is it that women should always fight for their position?
Why must young people fight for their position?
But men do not fight for their position.
Why must young
women must always fight? Let me just quickly.
Why must young people fight for their position?
Let me just quickly.
No, Adrian.
Let me make an example.
Let me answer.
Let me make this an example.
No, let me answer. You have asked a question. You need to give me a chance to answer. Why must young people fight for their position? We are also fighting to participate, to have space, because an old generation does not want to allow a new space for a new generation. In all the liberation movements, it's the same.
You can't equate the fight that young people are fighting to the fight that women continuously fight.
What is the difference?
I just want to make...
What is the difference?
Let me make this example quickly, Ronald. The ANC has taken a decision that says that there must be a 50% gender parity. The NEC of the ANC had a meeting after the 2014 elections, and out of the 2014 elections, how many female premiers came out of that meeting? Just one. That is not 50-50. That's not a 50-50 representation.
Yeah, but that question is unfair to be asked to me. You must ask to the previous NEC. How will I answer? I can't account for the NEC.
But these are NEC members who are ANC members.
I can't account.
These are NEC members who will, some of them will be re-elected to become NEC members.
I can't account for the NEC.
Yeah.
No, I can't account for the NEC.
Which is why I asked you earlier on.
You should have asked the former Secretary General, not me. I'm not part of that for my
like
NEC.
Sakina is saying, you must have a point of view actually on it.
No.
You must have a point of view.
You must ask the former, you should have asked the former Secretary General.
For instance,
not me.
For
I
instance,
can't account really for the Secretary General.
You are not part of the previous NEC. Why are you upset that there are no young people being represented in ANC structures?
It's because I led young people and I emerged from that generation.
Do you
so
agree?
it is my responsibility to lobby for my generation. It's also a responsibility of every other member to lobby for members of the Women's League. So if there was a problem that was not resolved, it's for that NEC to account.
So you agree that the ANC is deeply patriarchal?
I can't account on that, Sakina. I think it's for the NEC.
But how can you not account? You are a part of the ANC.
I don't think so. I don't agree, because if at least the Constitution has progressively introduced the issue of 50-50, is to address that. They started with a quota, they moved up to 50-50. So it's a sign that there is an interest. Even when you look at reports dealing with the representation of women on higher position, the public sector, because of the progress of the ANC, cabinet, in most cases in various provinces and even at national, there is a clear issue of 50-50. So there has been clear work by the ANC.
So why is it so difficult?
Has been put on the report.
So why is it so difficult at organizational level if it can be done in government? You've proven
it is
that it can be
happening, and
done
the organization is 50-50.
It's not.
Where is it 50-50, Ronald?
The Constitution says it must be 50-50.
No, the Constitution may say that.
NEC
but
is 50-50.
the reality is that it is not.
The NEC is 50-50. That's what the Constitution says. If it's not 50-50, it has to be. It is paid by the IEC. It's like that.
The Constitution says 50-50. What about the top six? There's only one female president. The Constitution of the ANC, sorry, the Constitution of the ANC says 50-50, but yet again, there's not even one female chairperson of the ANC.
Remember, Adrian, when we speak about the National Executive Committee, is the whole body. The top six are not a structure. So when we say 50-50, the entire NEC must reflect that 50% gender representation. And that's what is happening.
Leadership.
The top leadership is the NEC.
Yes, that should also, but above the top, the NEC
the top leadership
is the top six.
The top leadership is the NEC.
No.
Yes. The top leadership is the NEC.
It's not about semantics,
It's not
Ronald.
semantics.
It is.
The Constitution of the ANC says the NEC is the highest decision-making body, is the highest structure of the ANC.
That is fine.
Says it must be 50-50 women representation.
Okay.
So when the IEC allocate, it must make sure that there is gender parity.
Which votes were announced yesterday?
The top six.
So let's talk about the top six.
It's progression.
Let's talk about the top six.
Voting for the additionals.
If you're going to play semantics, let's play semantics. Let's talk about the top six then.
Yeah.
So the top six, how many women are represented in the top six of the ANC?
Comrade Jason.
One out of six.
Yes.
Is that 50-50?
It's not.
Constitution?
The Constitution says 50-50. And when you count
the 50-50?
At this stage, the NEC is not complete. We don't have a structure called NEC now. It will be complete when the entire NEC has been voted. It is then that the IEC intervene and say, how many women have been elected in the NEC? There is a man, there are more men than women. Let's put in all women so that the structure is 50-50.
And doesn't that betray the patriarchal nature of the African National Congress? And I asked you specifically earlier on about whether you would support the election of a female premier.
I will support. There will be no reason why I can't support.
But that's not what you said earlier.
No, I'm saying you asked me about the previous process. I said I can't account for that.
No,
what
I asked you whether you would support.
Yes, I will.
And simply because, and you were talking about how women should fight for their position.
Not women. When it comes to the issue of women, I've said both men and women have a responsibility. When it comes to the youth, I said young people must fight for their space. They must make sure that they find expression in the structures and in society.
Why
That's
should
what
women
I've said.
have to convince you? I mean, history is littered with evidence of how women have been subjugated forever and ever. So why should they have to convince you about doing the right thing? And that is to make sure that women have an equal representation at every level of society. Why should they have to convince you about that?
They are not convincing me, Sakin. And that's why I always put the issue of youth. I'm trying to show you, because in this country, when we deal with women, we deal with youth, we deal with all stuff, because women have been vulnerable, women have been affected by apartheid, they suffer triple oppression. And that is the policy of the ANC. And that's why the ANC tried to gradually constitutionalize. When it realized that there's a challenge of them not acceding to positions of power, it constitutionalized it to make it effective. But with the issues that affect young people, it has not yet been constitutionalized. There is no provision in the constitution of the ANC that says there must be 50% young people. So that's why I say, from our side, as a youth, we also fight for our space. And the Women's League and in the ANC, it was created to deal also to lobby the ANC members and also to lobby society as a whole. It is also a responsibility of men to give support to what the Women's League want, which is a process which will reflect both parties, not only men. It will also reflect on how the Women's League deal with the challenges in the ANC. So that's why I was coming to the issue that when we came to this national conference, which you are speaking about, the announcement of results, I say there were more than 3 women contesting. The Women's League had the responsibility on them to support them, not only to choose one, but also men had the responsibility to support, which has happened. And unfortunately, some of them emerged, some did not emerge. So the reality is that we all need to go back to the drawing board to say, there was this challenge, how then do we move forward from this conference to ensure that at least in future there is a fair platform for all women to participate in the ANC structures. But there is also a fair platform for the youth to find space in the structures of the ANC. Because now when I speak, I must make sure that the ANC reflects the youth of this country. That government and private sector reflect the youth of this country because they are the majority.
So in other words, if the African National Congress finds itself...
And youth, Sakina, means both young women and men.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Fair enough.
You see, that's the problem, is that when you fight on the issues of youth, which of course involve young men and young women as well, at some point you might find yourself in a situation when Ronald Lamola is 1050 and find himself as a leader of the ANC with a top 6 or top 9 that is just male, because this issue has not been addressed. Starting from here, starting right from this conference as it stands at the moment. Earlier on, I was even saying to the veterans,
ourselves from the Youth League, we have got a very good track record. The Youth League elected Phoebe Fort-Kitre, Secretary General. The Youth League elected Vuiso Tulele, Secretary General. We come from that school of thought.
And
we have supported women.
What has happened to them?
We wanted them to participate in the ANC structures and gradually grow. But it's a point that I'm raising, that there is a challenge that in the ANC there is no space for a new breed of generation to find space. And that new breed of generation must fight for their space.
You know, I love the example that you raised in Phoebe and Vuiswa, because...
You must ask, where is Rapumulekwan also? Where is Rapumulekwan? Where is Ruben Mushaluka? There are many that came from the ranks of the youth.
The lawyer in you is countering really what you knew I was going to ask.
No,
because you knew I was going to ask.
I'm just showing you that the struggle that the Women's League is in is the struggle that we are in as young people also in the ANC. So we are sharing
going to the two examples that you just cited, where are their male counterparts from that same generation of youth league leaders?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that is the question that we also need to ask. So what it will tell you is that there is a challenge.
Male leaders who have advanced.
I want to answer that question. That is why we have got a gap, a generational gap in the ANC. Because the majority of the trained cadres of the youth league, they do not graduate to the ANC
to lead the ANC, because the ANC is the Youth League is a political school of the ANC. From the ANC structures, you must see a lot of Youth League graduates, but I can count a lot of them that you cannot account for them. And that is what we're talking about. When I speak about Ruben Michel, there are many other good NEC members of both male and female, that we cannot account for today. And that is the culture which ourselves in the ANC Youth League and in the ANC we said, this needs to change. But also the challenge that there was a time when there was a more rebound in the structures of the Youth League have also created that gap in the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So that's why we came here, even ourselves as young people, with no coherent voice and not clear in terms of what we want, including in terms of representation. But we agreed in conference that it doesn't matter where you come from. If there is a young person and who we know is a graduate of the Youth League, we must support that person, irrespective of which faction he supported.
Let's move on from that for a moment, because speaking of young people, because it is clear that that's what you're absolutely passionate about.
Yeah, yes.
When it comes to young people,
for both young women and men. That's what must be clear, Sakit. That's why I'm telling you that we have produced Secretary Generals in the Youth League. So we are not patriarchal in the Youth League. We are
question
clear.
is, where
and we
are
want to have to see it in the ANC. Yeah. I want to see Vuisa Tulela one day be the Secretary General.
Who were the other people in the top leadership structure with her?
I want to see.
Who were the other men in the top structure with her?
To give you an example,
No, Ronald. Let's focus on this question. Who were the men in that structure with her?
I did not
in
want
the leadership.
No,
Ronald.
I did not want to come to that, but
no. Let's go there. Let's go there, Ronald.
The young man has been expelled from the ANC.
Ronald, let's go there.
Julius has been expelled from the ANC.
And who else was there?
It was Andile Lungisa.
Who else was there?
Andile Lungisa.
Who else was there?
Stephen Goveni.
Who else was there?
Pule Mabe.
Who else was there?
You want all of them? Abnam Sasa.
And I'll tell you why I want to walk through that. We all know where Julius Malema ended up. And I can count all of them. All the men we can track, off the top of my head, I can tell you.
You can't. Where is Andile
the ones
now?
that you have mentioned. We know where Andile Lungisa is. We know where Julius Malema is. We know where Pule Mabe is.
Kinetso Msonekh is a member of the PC in the Northwest of the ANC.
Where's Vuiswa?
Vuiswa, she's a consul general in Canada. It's in Chicago.
Why did she go there? What did she do politically before she went there?
She was the Secretary General of the Youth League. Andile Lungisa is not a member. Maybe he will be elected in this, but I saw him declining. But he's not a member now of either the PEC. He says he wants to go back to PE. Comrade Pule was in the NEC. I hope he will be elected again. Comrade Abnam Sasa is not a member of any structure of the ANC. Comrade Palisa Notse is not a member of any structure of the ANC. Comrade Ntibi Modise is leading a region in the Gauteng of the Youth League. There are many. Baba Lomulife is not leading any structure of the ANC.
But you've proven to us that it's easier for men to rise in the organization.
Which man has risen?
How?
Which man?
No, you can't be serious, Ronald.
I've given you an example. I said, here is Andile Lungisa. He was in the PC, but now he's not there. He's no longer there.
Yeah,
maybe
but
we'll be
that's because of political.
Let's go.
Issues.
Let's go. Stephen Ngubeni. He's not in any structure leading any structure.
Wasn't Stephen Ngubeni at NEDA? Wasn't he? Where was he? Wasn't he at NEDA?
Yes, he was there. Even when he was still in the Youth League. But what is the difference if you want to talk about...
The difference is it is infinitely more difficult for women to ascend.
But she's a consul general. It's a serious position.
That's why I asked you.
She's a consul general in Chicago.
Okay, I wanted to talk to you about youth unemployment.
She's a consul general in Chicago.
Let's move to youth unemployment.
Was running a position in Comrade Nkosazana's office at the AU.
You've proven the point.
But
let's talk about youth unemployment.
Okay.
And youth unemployment is said to be, the most serious ticking time bomb that this country is sitting on right now. And looking at learners graduating from high school. It's that time again when we're going to get matric results, and they're simply going to add in the main to the cohort of unemployed young people. As the Youth League, what sort of plans do you have in mind to try and arrest this particular problem?
It's like, you forget that I'm not a leader of the Youth League.
I'm sorry. As someone who's passionate about the youth, I don't associate you with that.
Ronald, can you just quickly answer that question? We need to wrap up.
I think what we need, obviously, is the part that deals first with skilling this generation of young people that emerges from high school, in terms of the TVET colleges, as also in terms of the higher education sector, which the president has declared free education for. But the other point, which I think the government must deal with, is that there are new economies emerging on the energy sector and also on the ICT side. There must be clear set aside for young people in these emerging economies, because these emerging economies cannot be claimed by anyone to be having experience, because the biggest obstacles for young people to get access to work, they are told that they are not having experience and so forth. But you get surprised that the ocean economy, the energy sector, the ICT sector, which are fairly new, even in those sectors they are told that no, you do not have experience. So I think government must put a clear set aside and speak about the 30% and really implement that set aside and decisively intervene. We do have such policies that already at this stage are speaking about set aside, but it's not legislation. So officials and the private sector are still able to bypass because they say, but it's not binding, it's just policy. Maybe we need to deal with it at the legislative level and be clearly and decisive. So in that way, we will have a situation of mass employment of young people and also of mass skill in those new sectors, because it is also a plus for the government or the private sector when you involve young people in such new sectors, because it will be difficult to learn, to make others who might not be young to learn those to change the trade. So it will be much easier for you to involve young people. But that is the second phase. The first one is to deal with the skill. We have to deal with the skilling. Then the second phase is that one, to say this thing, we must be able to set aside sectors that we're saying in this sector. It must be clear that it must be those that are coming from either the TVET colleges, from universities, and maybe also the learnerships for the high school graduates.
And maybe they can share that space with women.
Well, there you have it from...
Both the men and women.
Well, as you can see, that the battle for young people to find their space in the ANC is particularly a tough one, but more specifically for women as well. And that battle will continue to rage on. Hopefully, when Ronald Lamola becomes an NEC member of the ANC, we'll continuously keep on hearing the voices of young people coming through and issues relating to young people.
I might forget that I'm no longer leading the Youth League.
Well, that's it. That's what we have for you for now. Later on, we'll try to get you some further analysis of the ANC's elective conference and, of course, that big issue, the developing story at the moment as it stands, Senzo Mkhunu going to court to try and get a recount of all the votes that were cast. Was it on the second day?
Was it this? It was yesterday.
Was it yesterday? I lost
Yeah,
track of time. I lost track of time. But that's a story that we'll be following from now heading into the evening, of course.